Is it really just sensationalism that we point out that ancient history is absolutely replete with inaccuracies, and the fact that there is evidence all over the planet pointing to our conclusion that we are in fact from a civilization so ancient that it makes the ancient Sumerians and Egyptians look like modern cultures? It's not sensationalism, and we condemn such accusations, and we must point out that the true sensationalists are the ones who have spoon-fed us their own interpretations of what they expect history to be. All we are doing here is presenting facts that should not be overlooked or ignored any longer. We all need to have access to this evidence as we weigh up the true meaning and timeline of ancient history. Wait till you hear this. In the ancient Qumran text, the Great Sphinx is referred to as the Rakma, which is patiently waiting for the day of the destroyer. But what exactly does the word Rakma mean, and how do we know it to be in reference to the Sphinx? Well, in ancient Egypt mythology, the father of the gods, sun god, and protector of mankind was Ra. So the term sun god is fairly self-explanatory, or is it? Emanuel Velikovsky, who was an author of several controversial books reinterpreting ancient historical events, points out that in ancient times, the word sun was sometimes used to refer to a different planet altogether. A planet which exploded many thousands of years ago in a nova-like burst of brilliant light and earned from Chaldean astronomers the name Alap Shemus, star of the sun. According to the Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, the Chaldeans called this planet Helios, while Babylonian astrologers knew it as Shamash and Ult-Galu, the great son of storms. In India, the planet was once called the sun's name, Archai, and in ancient Greece it was Phionin, the shining one. The Zoroastrian Parsi Bandayish speaks of the star Tishtar, saying that for 30 days and nights he was distinguished in brilliance, and in each form he produced rain 10 days and nights. Every single drop of that rain became as big as a bowl, and the water stood the height of a man over the whole of this earth. The Qumran roughly echoes this measurement. When the tumult quieted and the waters became still, they stood no more than 3 cubits above the earth. The Mexican Codex says that the first world age, which ended when the earth was destroyed by a universal deluge called Atenoteu, the son of water, was proceeded over by a body in the heavens called Actul. This planet, known as Kronos of the ancient Greeks, was called Saturn by the Romans and has been Saturn ever since. In other words, the Ra in the word Rakma could refer either to the father, protector, sun god Ra, or the planet Saturn. Many names in the Qumran have become skewed over centuries of translation, but not Kima. In the Old Testament, it appears in Job 38. Can you bind the cluster of the Kima, or loosen the cords of Kesel? And in Amos 5:8, seek him who made the Kima and Kesel, and turns the shadow of death into the morning, and makes the day dark with night, who calls the waters of the sea, and pours them out of the surface of the Eretz. The Lord is his name. The 3rd century Jewish astronomer Rabbi Bar Nachmani wrote, when the Holy One wants to bring a flood upon the world, he took 2 stars from Kima and brought a flood. And the 11th century scholar Rashi Isaac ben Solomon wrote that a comet called Kima caused the flood. Whatever Kima was, it was a force to be reckoned with. The ancient Egyptians certainly thought so, for as the philologist E.A. Wallace Budge notes, they used the word Kimai, meaning destroyer, and to destroy or attack. Velikovsky was convinced that the planet Saturn caused the Great Flood. In the beginning, uses a host of ancient Greek, Roman, and Sanskrit texts to support his theory, identifying Kima with what ancient texts called moist Saturn, Kesel with hot Mars, and suggests that a supernova explosion by Saturn precipitated the flood. Apart from Saturn, there are other contenders for the role of planetary villain. In St. Jerome's 4th century Vulgate and in the King James Bible, Kima is translated as the star cluster Pleiades or Hades, or as the star Arcturus. Velikovsky rejects these interpretations, pointing out that in rabbinical literature, the term Mazel Kamash used. Mazel means planet, and Saturn, he maintains, is the only planet that can be identified with Kima. Whether or not Velikovsky was correct in identifying Kima with Saturn, the Kolbrin makes clear that the Great Flood, which followed this planetary event, was one of almost total destruction. It was preceded by days of brilliant supernova light. Two heavenly bodies fell from the sky. One of them belched forth fire and hot stones and a vile smoke. It covered the whole sky above, and the meeting place of earth and heaven could no longer be seen. The stars in the heavens were loosened from their places, so they dashed about in confusion. There was a revolt on high. A new ruler appeared there and swept across the sky in majesty. This cosmic chaos turned day into night and triggered earthquakes, whirlwinds, thunder, lightning, and volcanic activity, accompanied by a terrific noise in the heavens above, followed by great heat and bitter cold. Then the earth was bombarded with water from two different directions, from above the earth's atmosphere and extraterrestrial torrents. The floodgates of heaven were opened, the pillars of heaven were broken and fell down to earth. The sky vault was rent and broken, and from below in gigantic bursts, the foundations of earth were broken apart. The surrounding waters poured over the land and broke upon the mountains. Changes in the world's ancient calendars suggest this heavenly chaos caused a change in Earth's orbit. At some point in the ancient times, the Hindu Aryans, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Mexicans, the Incas, and the Chinese all amended their calendars from 360 to 365 and a half days. The writer Richard Mooney suggests in Colony Earth that an alteration in Earth's distance from the Sun and its orbital position would account for the difference in the length of the year. If Earth had been jolted out of its previously held orbital position, the Moon also would have been affected. The change would have affected the Earth-Moon system. Since the Moon is a smaller body than Earth, and the distances between them much smaller than between the Earth and the Sun, the differences would have been even more noticeable in the case of the Earth-Moon system than in the case of the Earth-Sun system. Was this the kind of shift that the Sphinx early warning system might have picked up on its sensor? The Kolbrin states that the Earth has been completely destroyed twice in human memory, once by fire and once partially by water. The destruction by water was, it says, the lesser destruction. So when Kima, an eruption of heavenly bodies from either Saturn or a star cluster, fell to Earth, it brought about the second worst disaster in our planet's history and spelt unimaginable terror for mankind. What is interesting here is how close Rakma, father of Kima, is to the Sphinx's later Arab name Abu Hal, father of Terra. Could Rakma be an extremely ancient name for the Sphinx? If it was, then as human memory of the terrible event of the catastrophe dimmed over thousands of years, Rakma might have become simply father of Terra. Whatever the answer is, whatever the truth may be, we are certain the Sphinx is older than anything we have yet to come up with. It was built to last and as a warning system at Giza, an astronomical clock that we are as yet to fully understand. What do you guys think of this anyway? This is part 3 in our Sphinx mini-series, and if you've missed the first 2 episodes, then please go and check those out. These videos are based on decades of research from people like Graham Hancock. We will leave links below to these sources, guys, so please be sure to go and check that out and help spread the word. Part 4 to follow. We hope you are enjoying these videos. Comments below, and remember, the ways by which we arrive at knowledge are hardly less wonderful than the discovery of these things themselves.
Also that by now it's 100 years since Darwin achieved his victory over the book of Genesis. Now it is a little bit difficult to go back and to say, well, the story is not exactly so. We have the phenomena from all places, from the bottom of the sea with ash and with nickel, which is of meteoric origin, and the ash that covers all the bottom of the ocean. And you know, geologists today claim, like Professor Ewing of Columbia University, that it was an encounter with a terrific comet that spread this ash all over the world, and now it's found evenly spread on the bottom of the oceans. And you have now the accepted view, which was not accepted only 10 or 5 years ago, that the terrestrial axis moved, and that paleomagnetism proves us that terrestrial axis, that magnetic axis, and possibly like Runcorn and other of Manchester, claim that the Earth turned over. We know now from observation of Professor Danjon, director of Paris Observatory, that flares on the sun may influence the speed of rotation of the Earth, and there were sudden changes. Only very recently we read even that Jupiter was subjected to strong changes, and this also confirmed one of the latest of my
point you had made.
Yeah.
Isn't it strikingly true that the scientists who are willing to talk about these disturbances, about a change in the terrestrial axis, a change in the magnetic field of the Earth, that they are willing to talk about them provided they are put very far back in history? They are willing to talk about distortion of the Earth's crust, provided.
Well, this is a psychological problem. You see, we generally don't like to know that we are traveling on a accident-prone planet. You, of course, understand, and I am not a prophet of doom, just the other way around. I believe that we are now, if the man himself will not be the cause of his destruction, we are now in a settled solar system for eons to come. But in the past, there were, in human memory, these very events that, by reconstruction of which, I could put all those claims, what you call predictions, that now, like Professor Barham, Professor Morse, and others writing to Science and others claim for me these predictions, an unusual prediction, because it was not things that could be accepted, could be put into accepted scheme. Venus is hot. When it's calculated, only 17, and it's 100 degrees hot. What? Venus is covered by hydrocarbons. You know, 4 years before the publication of my book, I approached the director of Harvard College Observatory asking that spectral analysis should be performed on Venus. And he directed me to Professor Adams, director of Mount Wilson Observatory in California, in Palomar, and to Professor Wilt, still alive, at Yale. Mm-hmm. And I put before them this my request, explain that this is a crucial test. And understand, please, Venus is the last link in the theory. If there were catastrophes, and in historical times, and caused by extraterrestrial agent, and the agent was a protoplanet, Venus, and now I can say what Venus is like, that it is hot, that it is wrapped in a envelope of hydrocarbons. This I claimed
on the basis of the historical record.
Yes. And I asked this to be performed, and I got the answers. This was summer 46, 4 years before the publication of the book. There are no hydrocarbons on Venus, in writing. And I was so firm in my belief that I did not blunder in the interpretation of historical sources that I put in my book. There must be an envelope of hydrocarbons. And then when in February 63, 2 months after the Mariner passing point, then the report was given out, and it was hydrocarbons, dust and gases, exactly as I claimed it.
The embarrassment here for science is that you are seeking to unearth a natural fact by way of the humanistic evidence, which is to say you're bringing together a synthesis of different kinds of knowledge.
But let me
This
say,
also is an argument.
Let me ask you, what is the principle of uniformity? What does he say? Principle of uniformity on which is based the theory of evolution of Darwin. Our modern scientific thought is built on principle of uniformity, which crumbles by today. On what does it mean, this principle? Does it mean really that things that we do not observe today could not have happened years ago